limit the obsession with things outside of myself to fix myself, basically. And I was there, and I was meditating about all this stuff, and I was like, man, you know what? I really want to do like ibogaine or iboga, which is like this hallucinogen, and I actually think hallucinogens are great. I just don't do them. And I'm like, man, it would be so cool, and I get all these realizations about myself. I can't hit these points with meditation, and all this crazy shit happened in this week, and I ended up meditating in this deep state, and maybe face-to-face we'll get to what actually happened. I remember sitting there thinking, I was like, Mike, this is what I want to talk about at this convention. There are like 4 main things of like insights that I have that really implement, the message, that I've had, and that have allowed me an opportunity to not have the same like anger, the fear, the guilt, the shame, all that sort of stuff in my life. And don't get me wrong, I have those feelings. It's just they don't attach themselves to my everyday actions of things that, don't have that. But it was like, look, number 1, you've got to stop your self-pity. Or that was like the voice in my head. You've got to stop your defects. You've got to stop your self-obsession. And these are actually actions that will help you with that. I freaking guarantee you, man. Start making gratitude lists. You start doing morning meditations. Shit'll change your life, man. But, yeah. I'm talking about like all this like PC spiritual stuff. Man, this motherfucking stuff. But true story, man, we gotta hear the message some way, right? But anyway, so it was number 1, stop the self-pity. Stop the self-doubt. And I'm like, man, I'm angry in this moment. All this crazy shit had happened, and the voice in my head was telling me, it was like, no. Just stop. Trust me on this. Stop. And so I started to stop, and it was like, well, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And then it was myself talking to me in this like kind of deep state, and it was like, look, because it's spiritual contradiction. Yeah, you help people. Yeah, you give. Yeah, you do all this stuff. You give your time. You work with people. You are always doing volunteer work. Your job is, working with guys constantly online. Yeah, that's your purpose. But you also do all this other stuff. And it's contradicting itself. And your thing is like you kind of lie to yourself about it. You still say you're a good person. If you want to go like steal a candy bar or, do a, iffy business transaction, you need to be okay with it and be honest with yourself before you try and convince yourself that it's good or bad. Because anytime you talk yourself into something or out of something, you're buying into an illusion. You're buying into that fear. Once again, the sexual life is not about compensating yourself for fear of bad shit or wanting good shit to happen to you, because both are accessing fear. So I was like, all right, and you can kind of flash through a bunch of scenes, and I'm like, oh, all right, okay, spiritual contradiction. And then I'm like, well, what about, why can't I be fucking pissed off right now? And it starts saying, well, look, life, and this is one of the big things, sexual life, and the 2011 England speech, I broke it down, check it out. But life is kind of like the template for all things, and it's like, man, in life, everything gets fucked up. You're going to have emotions. You're going to feel bad. You might break your arm or whatever. Life still goes on. A plant, when it grows, it tears its cells apart and comes back together, all this sort of stuff. And you can be in pain. You can be mad. You can be pissed off. You can be sad when a chick rejects you. You can be angry when you get burned. You can be happy when, you find a $5 bill on the ground, But the main thing is when you start thinking that that's other parts of your life, you're not living in reality. So because I get a bunch of lays, because I score a big business deal, because I give a speech that everybody likes, or because I give a speech that everybody doesn't like, because of whatever, right? I start thinking that 2 hours from now is good or bad. Man, that's not me being in the moment. We want to be human beings. We're supposed to be human beings. But at the same time, we can't get caught up in the illusion of that. We need to get back to balance, right? We need to work towards it through this stuff. And then the 4th thing is that the universe is the universe. You get in the way of it, it's going to have its way with you. You can't change stuff. I could dictate that, and this is all like me speaking to me, right? You're listening to a speech from a guy about having conversations with himself. All right. But didn't, like many writers did that. Anyway, so the thing is that I was like, man, I have got to realize that life or whatever, shit making stuff work, I wouldn't necessarily call myself an atheist, but pretty much agnostic. that life is going to happen in any way, shape, or form. It's going to happen. I have a bad day. My computer gets stolen. One of my good friends relapses on smack. You know, that's life. The only thing that I can do to truly live life is be in the spot where I'm supposed to be and dedicate myself to being my best person at the right time. That's the only thing I can do. And fucked up shit happens, man. And this is actually one of the best things about my life. I actually want to write an article about the 5 things that changed my life. One being diet, that came from this. One being social and sexual, which came from, you know, this career that I've carved my way through. But one of them also is fighting, man. Shit, man. You know, martial arts without fighting or combat, not saying that people should go get in a fight, and please watch the speech because that's not what I'm saying, is like sex without seduction. Sex without seduction is pickup, you know. It's attention-getting stuff. But it was one of those things that put me in that reality. I was talking about it with a guy who studies jiu-jitsu, which is an awesome thing to do. But we were talking about it and how humble it makes you. Every time you think you're a badass, every time you think you're something that you're not, and you'll be brought back to balance. And that balance comes through submission. It doesn't come through submission because you're weaker. It doesn't come through submission because somebody kicked your ass. It comes through submission so that you can open your minds and let go. And that you can go on and be the best person you can be. Learn the jiu-jitsu that is you. You know, learn to flow like how you are. Learn to be who you can be in that action. You know, life is always moving, constant motion. Let's actually do this. What I want to do is open up questions for you guys. You can ask whatever question you want. My life is an open book. You know, if I get a bit afraid, I'll tell you. But also about these things, I think they're pretty goddamn important. And that being said, where's the microphone? Andrew has it. Cool. If you have questions, let's start dialoguing, man. The quicker we do it, the better we do it, and the quicker it goes. So stick your hand up. He'll give you the microphone, and we'll talk. Let me get some water.
With daily meditation,
Yeah.
You're saying, well, what would be the best form of daily meditation? Should I go down
It's
to
whatever.
Zen Center or?
Okay, so I don't want to be like a representative on meditation because I'm truly not, man. I've just done like, I've done a lot of mushrooms and acid. No, but actually in this form, you know what's weird? This is a true story. When I was a kid, I used to, when I was a kid, there wasn't a self-help section. So I'm 35, and I used to go to these bookstores that just had like, it was like different stuff, you know, Eastern or other religions section. And it had stuff on like Harry Lorraine's memory power to Shakti Gawain's creative visualizations to Alan Watts' stuff, which is some of the most badass shit on Zen Buddhism. And I got to meditate as a kid. You know, when I was like 8 years old, I could meditate and like really get into it. But see, life, I had no experience. And so I was still angry and still like didn't get certain things. When I got older and gained some experience, I would always try and go back to those times of meditation, you know, for whatever reasons, because I wanted to be like Bruce Lee or because I knew there was some spiritual component to it. And I couldn't get in state, or whatever you want to call it. I couldn't get there. I became too impatient with it. And what I do now, man, is really simple stuff. I'll take a walk, really slow, you know. There's actually one of the best things, this is what's so cool about my programs, man, is my guys who've been through the programs make lessons that get taught to the next programs that go through and even get paid for it and all this sort of stuff. We're like organic infused stuff. This guy made a meditation program, you know, using like hypnosis or whatever. Actually, he calls it meditation, but it's really cool. You know, it's actually one of the meditations that I do, and it's a visualization thing that you do and all that sort of stuff. But a lot of times it might just be taking a walk. It might be sitting down and breathing. A lot of times since I've been in Melbourne has just been taking it easy. Before I start the day, I'm working while I'm here, so I'm working with a guy. And before we start, I say, hey, man, give me 5 minutes just to clear my head. And I just sit there and try and think about stuff. Sometimes it might be an act of writing. So it's whatever you want to do. I'm not here to tell you, and this is how a principle works. I'm not here to tell you how to be you, you know. I'm here to offer some ideas that I believe will help you, and guys that I work with believe help them. And we kind of exchange different ideas of how to do that. But the goal of meditation, of where you should get, which is kind of the main idea to think about, is this. Clear your mind, get in touch with yourself. So you can clear your mind, and you're not pushed by reactions. A lot of reactive thinking or internal emotions, which will pollute. It's kind of like rehab talk, but it's good talk. Everybody should do it. That will pollute anything that comes in your mind. Will be guilt, shame, fear, anger. Those are all things that you can feel. I'm not saying they're bad. But if you don't take care of those 4 things, which are really, really important, and they're reactive emotions too. So they're dependent. In certain cultures, they don't have them, right? They're dependent on what other people think of us and how we think of ourselves. It's our self-perception of what other people think of us. If we don't take care of those things, it's going to infect whatever shit comes through us or put its own filter on it in some weird way. Actually, we've heard a lot of guys talk about that, but just kind of in their own way of saying it, but they're literally saying the same thing. If you can calm your mind so that you detach from that guilt, shame, fear, or anger, it'll help you kind of like get in the present moment of what I believe who you really are in this moment.